Hello, everyone. Welcome to the contributors meeting. I'm going to be your host today. I'm Leo, and let me start by sharing the screen. All right, and as usual, starting off with the triage and discussion. Last week we had Ishita and Sumia. I see Ishita in the call. Anything to add, Ishita?
Nothing major popped up as a part of triaging. I think just two major things. So there's a great effort on the OCI integration. We have actually a project also present in Argo CD. So if folks are interested, could look into that particular project. Yeah.
Cool. Do you
Mm,
want to add a link to it in the doc? So
Sure. Yeah, I could add it. Yeah.
cool. Thanks, Ishita. Um, is Sumia in the call?
Yep, I'm here.
Hi,
Nothing specific.
anything you want to add related
Yeah,
to
nothing
triage and
specific
discussion?
from my side also. I did see some regression on SSO, the DEX integration for 2.11. There's a issue there that I noticed, and some other bugs that popped up, but I don't think nothing major, I would say.
Okay. Do you want to add the link to the regression that you were?
Yep, I'll do that. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Sumaya. All right. So moving forward, let's select who's going to be doing triage next week. Any volunteers in the call?
I see that I'm next in the list. I can take it.
Oh, thank you, Pasha. Any volunteers for secondary?
I can do secondary. It's
Okay.
Keith.
Thank you, Keith.
Okay.
All right. Cool. So with that out of the way, let's go with the topics for the day. We have yeah, let me just quickly fix this here. All right, Andrew, I see you in the call. You wanna
Yeah,
this link?
yeah. So essentially, it seems like not a completely new issue. I linked to another issue before, but it was closed, and there's been some PRs to address the issue, but it was like seems like it wasn't fully addressed. So essentially, what seems to happen in Kubernetes, like EKS like 1.28. So if there is a field is like say empty dictionary, like for example, like application sync policy. It seems to be like deleted somewhere, either during like apply or by like Kubernetes itself. But in repo manifests, it still shows up as like a present field, which is just like empty. And then it results in like the app of apps showing out of sync. And I
Mhm.
think in the linked issue, I also observed like a similar thing, which was like for regular app which also was like related to an empty dictionary field, also resulting in like out of sync. So again, like similar situation that I think analysis run was the thing I observed it for, even
Mm.
after like the fixes mentioned in the like second issue. So I think I forgot what the exact field was, but yeah, it was also like same similar situation. Uh, so yeah, I guess we may need to do some like improvement to how we like compute the like normalization for like some fields, and maybe like for like empty dictionaries we also like do some exemptions or something. Note that it happens when like server-side diff is on, but server-side apply is not.
Were you able to narrow down this issue and double check if it's really related only with app of apps?
It seems like it's not so like if you open that other issue and like check one of my comments like after the like I think it was closed,
Mm.
then it has another example.
Right.
It's like analysis run that I've been mentioning. So yeah, it seems to be that it's just like related to handling of like absent field versus like a field with value empty dictionary.
Right. Yeah.
But I didn't look yet into the code to see like where the issue might be.
Yeah, we're facing a similar issue in one of our instances. Yeah, this is known to us as well.
Mhm.
Okay.
Andrei, have you reproduced it? Like, do you have clear steps to repro this issue?
Oh, so I think what to reproduce it like one way is just create type of apps and like have some applications have like, which is managed by it have sync policies empty, and I think it should just like show up like sometime. Maybe you need to do like some refresh or like
It's clearly it's reproducible for you, yeah? This issue.
uh
I'm
I
not
didn't
sure.
try, so I didn't try like to reproduce it completely from scratch, but it like regularly arises in like app of apps. So it like gets synced, then it gets out of sync and shows the diff with only this like sync policy in a couple of apps which just have it empty.
It's usually, I think it's pretty regular things that you may have empty sync policy, right? I don't know.
Yeah,
But
yes.
I would expect more complaints just around this issue. For me, it's like pretty regular pattern.
Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah, it is regular pattern, I agree. In some situations it occurs. It's not happening in many of our Argo CD instances. In only one we have that behavior in the diff. But I wasn't able to narrow down to how to exactly reproduce myself, Pasha. But maybe apps of apps could be a way to easily reproduce this.
Yeah, if you just have context right now, it's probably worth to put it here like version. I saw that you put something like
Yeah, the version I have like a custom build with like from master plus a few of my PRs. So
Mhm.
I think I believe you should be able to just reproduce it with a build from master.
Okay. Uh-huh. Okay, thank you.
Unless there has been like a recent fix, but I haven't seen something related. So yeah, there's been some fixes to like similar issue like with like I think roughly 3 weeks ago. Yeah, and I I don't know, maybe I
Okay.
like
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's
Thank
just
you.
some fix just landed or something, but I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Andrew, for reporting this. Yeah, I think it's a matter of someone to being able to pick it up. I don't think it's really related to server-side diff or server-side apply. It's really as we don't use those features in this particular instance that I'm referring to. And we are facing a similar problem with the diff. Okay, I'll add my comment here as well. And yeah, thanks again. Moving on, is this Sumia? Is that you?
Yeah.
Okay, this is for triage. This is something you would like to discuss.
It's for just for triage, I would say.
Okay, so let me move here then. Thank you. Blake.
So last week I have a pull request to make it easier to run end-to-end tests, especially locally, because it's not, to put it mildly, it's not very pleasurable to run them locally. So this aims to basically refactor the way we run end-to-end tests. Initially, it was just to run this as a flag locally, but then Jan and Paolo point out that there's not a strong desire to have another way of running tests. So in the meantime, I ripped it out on CI, and basically it runs on CI. There's still a few tweaks I need to do, but the gist of it is that this runs in CI. This also works pretty nicely locally, and I'm going to show you how it works. Just not to bore you too much, but I can just give a quick overview of how it
So
works.
if I'm understanding correctly, I wasn't here last week, but the suggestion was not to onboard this new strategy in CI and just having it available for running locally. Is that correct?
So no, the other way around. So I initially wanted it to just have it run locally, but
Okay.
then they wanted this also to run in CI because there's no
I
point
see.
having two ways of running tests.
Right. So the idea is to replace the E2E test that we have today and have only this new strategy
Correct.
in place.
Correct.
Cool.
Correct.
All right.
All right. Let me share my screen briefly. That's fine.
You want to share or demo? Yeah, go ahead.
All right. See my screen?
Yes.
So, long story short, not going to go too deeply into what's going on, but gist of it is that instead of having this whole Docker tool chain, we run a few Docker containers in the test suite itself. So we'll have a test container here. Jan did a lot of this work previously, so I just piggybacked on this. So this particular container runs Git, runs Helm directories and such. And then we expose the ports. We randomize the ports, so I still have to do to randomize ports as much as possible, because what I do now is that instead of running the whole test suite within the Docker container, we run all the application set controller, we run them in process, but then spin them off in separate Go routines, and then they just run as processes while the test suite is running. So yeah, and then we have a K3S, we have a Redis that we also run, and all of this runs and gets torn down when the tests are done. So I can just show you how it works here. And there's no there's no particular flags or anything set. This runs just by using Go test E2E, or you can run this in the IDE. You can put in a debugger breakpoint. It just works as you would expect a normal unit test run, except this actually sets up all the boilerplate required for this to run. So as an example, this is just running. It takes a while because obviously it has to spin up K3S. That's the longest part because we have to wait on K3S to get ready. But once this is done, then the test runs as slowly as they typically run. And then you can see it's also a bit verbose, the logging at this point. So this logs one issue is that all the logging output is interleaved between application controller, the API server, Kubernetes. Well, Kubernetes actually is not, does not, but the test server. So it's quite verbose at this point, but.
Is it possible to distinguish logs and which container they're coming from?
Not at this time, but it's a to-do. But I mean, it's in the end, it shouldn't be too hard to add this. It's basically the demo. So since everything is running in process, though, there's a couple of caveats, which unlike the previous solution, which is one of which is that some of the tests require certificates. So some of this, if you want to run tests which need certificates, you basically need to install the trusts for a self-signed certificate in your local trust store, and also need to have Argo CD itself, the Argo CD CLI, to be compiled. So what other caveats did I write down? Basically, and then this is trying to randomize ports as much as possible, but there's still to do. I need to do this for Helm repositories in particular, that the ports randomized. And the problem, of course, is that with charts and with chart dependencies, a lot of it is hard coded to specific ports. So I want to try to get that done. But that's the gist of it in the end. And this runs in CI, barring the fact that still need to work. I need to fix the port for Helm, but I ran this yesterday, ran the whole test suite, passed, and likewise locally it works as well. So that's basically the quick demo. So I obviously need to document this, clean this up, particularly on the documentation part and cleanup. Yeah, I would like to know what you guys think in regards to this.
Yeah, thanks, Blake. I have a few questions. One of the strategies I use to run ET tests locally is usually I spin up all the necessary infrastructure the way I want, and then I just use to execute tests as a normal unit test, and it would just pick up the and use the infrastructure that I have up and running. With this new approach, would I be able to continue to use my method of EDE tests, or I would absolutely go with this new
So at this
pattern?
So at this point, there is a way to, I mean, you can untoggle test containers. So the default is to run test containers and to run all that infrastructure, but I mean, that can be set to false. I would need to make some tweaks. So like if you're setting all the relevant environment variables, it should not be overridden by test containers. So yes, in theory, it should just, in fact, I haven't done this so that it actually does this yet on my branch. But it should be possible in the future too. So yes.
Okay, and when a user, let's say a user randomly starts a DTE test in the repo, will it take care of installing the dependencies it needs, or it will fail? So what are the? It's unclear to me. You mentioned a few different tools, K3S, Docker, obviously. So how the solution will handle the environment setup, like the tools that are required for this test to run.
So when the test runs, or when you invoke the test, I mean, if Docker, so obviously Docker has to be installed. That's really the only dependency that has to be installed beforehand. But assuming Docker's installed, if it's not already present on the local machine, it will do the Docker pull, it will do Docker builds. So there is, like, in terms of the remote container, there's a bit of user remapping magic, for example, which has to happen. But the gist of it is that it would either do Docker builds of the container. This doesn't actually.
And you mentioned that K3S as well.
K3S goes, that also gets pulled in automatically, and so what happens is the image of K3S, if it's not present, it gets pulled. It starts the K3S Docker image. It gives the test containers gives an API to retrieve the kube config, and then in the test we set the local kube config to just run. So this would so I write it to a temporary directory and then use that set that config as an mvar, and then it just uses that kube config to run. So that's all transparent from a user perspective. So first time running, user doesn't have to do anything by default.
Right. And in the CI, I'm assuming you have a mechanism to start all the infrastructure at the first test executed, keep that up and running while all the remaining tests are being executed, and tear down at the very end.
So teardown is handled by test containers itself. So test containers there's like this cleanup daemon it has, it's called Ryuk. So basically when test containers runs, and while the tests are running, all the info is up. I can actually show you how it is in CI.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with test containers. Is that a framework, a test framework? What is that?
A library.
Library?
Company's been acquired by Docker Inc. So I anticipate that it will be around for a while. So it's a library where like you can pull. It's a way to run. It's a way to run Docker services in your code. So whether it's Java or Go, Lang, or what have you.
Interesting.
So
is there any performance impact on doing this?
It's equally slow as it is. So like when I ran the whole test suite, it's about 45 to 50 minutes, which is the same as today. So no benefits in that sense. Just in terms of it's much simpler to just run the test locally, and also to be able to step into code and such.
Okay.
Yeah, that's feel free to try it out. I mean, I still need to. I will probably spend the weekend to do some tweaks to it so it comes, because some of the stuff, I mean, in terms of port randomization, I still need some improvements there, but feel free to try it out and let me know what you think. And
I have one last question. I remember that we have some tweaks in the code, in the E2E code to avoid specific types of tests that depend on, if I remember correctly, certificates. Maybe not, but because it's really hard to run that suite of tests locally, we had that if conditions just to see if the E2E test is running locally or not and avoid that group of tests. With this new method, will I be able to really, it's GPG based tests. Yeah, all tests that depends on GPG were excluded to run locally. With this new strategy, will us be able to run it?
Yeah, that's not affected at all. So there's all those skip MVAR still exists. So if you want to skip GPG tests, you're free to do so. Skip OpenShift tests, free to do so as well.
Right. Yeah, but my question is, with this new strategy, will I be able to run the GPG based tests locally?
I think I don't see why not. I believe I ran them, and I had to double check, but I think I ran those tests actually.
Because
but
it was
that-
depending on something Linux based and running on a Mac wasn't possible. So that's why in the past those were removed from running locally and they were just executed in CI. As now we're executing things in Docker, maybe we can run those and remove all this complexity in the code and to remove the GPG based tests. So,
Let me see what says. I have to check this myself actually. Skip on env. So these ones.
yeah, exactly. So you see this keep on env,
Yeah.
it's because of that issue.
All right, let's try it out. I'm not sure if this works or not. I might have skipped those locally as well, actually. But if not, I can look into it if it's.
Yeah, sure. Just something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool. I think it simplifies how to run 88 tests locally. Folks not familiar with all the infrastructure required to run Argo City. Good stuff. Anything else for Blake? Anybody in the call?
Yeah, good stuff.
Sure. You mentioned something about documentation, Blake. I think it's good to have that updated in the dev doc somewhere. It's in your to-do list, I guess.
Yes, definitely.
Cool.
No, it's
Cool. All right. Thank you, Blake.
okay.
Okay, getting back to sharing. What else do we have? Dan.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys have already talked about this. There's this license check that comes up on like every PR now saying that licenses are invalid. I haven't seen it on everyone, but it just started like yesterday. So if you go down to the checks here, in here, I've seen this on a bunch of PRs that are unrelated. So I think we must have merged something or something. So if you hit details on this, and it'll make you sign in if you're not to actually review the issues. I'm trying to figure out what happened here because
Yeah,
this check is like now failing everywhere.
yeah, I think Michael has the background about it. I remember him mentioning something about this check. I wasn't involved in this then. I don't have the background about that. Maybe it's better to reach out to Michael. I don't see him in the call.
You said Michael?
Michael, yeah, Michael.
Okay.
Let's just ping Michael and clarify that. I think he has the background.
Okay. And in the meantime, are we safe to ignore it?
It is. It is safe to ignore. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I remember him mentioning something like he was expected to fail in every PR, but I'm not sure about the plans and moving forward.
But I think it's not blocking right now.
It's not locking, no.
Okay.
We can merge PRs even with this particular check. Okay,
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll check with him.
cool. Thank you. All right, any any other topics someone wants to discuss last minute? All right, if not, have a great rest of your day and see you guys next week. Thanks, everybody.
I could just point out the GPT test seems like they're working locally. As
Cool,
inside.
that's good news.
Sick.
Thanks, Blake. Good stuff. Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Bye.